Live from the Don and Lorena Meyer studio at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln College of Journalism and Mass Communications, this is Nebraska Nightly.
It's game day in Lincoln. 4 words that Husker fans all over the state and country have been eager to hear following a very successful offseason full of many changes. I'm Trey Marler alongside my tag team partner, Kuz Keenan. And this is a program that has gone through a number of changes since that 24-17 win over the Iowa Hawkeyes. First, Kuz, no doubt about it, the new head coach, Matt Rhule. That's just the biggest thing. They're coming in from the Carolina Panthers. He's the face of the offseason.
Yeah, there was some talks around. There was a lot of dudes in the conversation for, who were going to get the job. Matt Rhule, I think he really fits the stone, just the way he held his first press conference. And if you look at some of his past collegiate jobs, you look at Temple, he started off 2-10, and then his final year there, they were 10-3, and he ran a lot of power scheme stuff, a lot of stuff with 2 tight ends, fullbacks, a 4-3 defense. And going to Baylor, that program had a death sentence on them practically.
There's people that want that program just gone.
Gone, exactly. And the fact that he took it from 1-11 his first year to 11-3, getting to a Big 12 title game, winning Coach of the Year in the Big 12 during that 2019 season, completely revolutionized that program, and they're a dominant force today.
Yeah, I think he's the guy that exactly what this program needed right now. This is a program that has had the potential to be there, but they just haven't got there. And he's that guy that he's turned around programs before. Obviously, like you mentioned, Temple and Baylor at the college level, which is big. And I think it just comes down to, like you said, he just plays football the right way. He runs the football. He uses that fullback. Really excited to see that fullback. He's been super heavy on bringing that fullback run, downhill power. But then it's interesting because you go to Baylor, and he was more of a spread guy, air it out, air raid in the Big 12. So I'm interested to see kind of how he kind of mixes those two together as a coach. And then, but plus, at the end of the day, it all comes down to just being physical and playing football the right way. And when he spoke to the media on Thursday, and he kind of gave us a glimpse of what we're going to see tomorrow, and I think people are going to really enjoy it, and he kind of gave us an idea of what we could see on tonight.
All right, a couple things. We are playing a traditional game. A couple modifications. You'll see some different things on special teams. A couple different ways that we'll do some things, which I won't get into now. I'll talk to you about it after the game because I want to surprise everybody. Maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't. Quarterbacks will be live. We're just going to play a game. I think we're trying to learn how to win, and there's an ebb and flow to a football game that I think is really important as you react to the situation. So we're going to play it out. We're going to put 15-minute quarters on the clock. We will use like NFL timing, first downs, the clock won't stop. Just to, we're thin in some spots. The offensive line will wear gray jerseys so that they can rotate, so that they can play on both teams depending on who's available. And if a guy goes down, hey, so-and-so can go over and play right tackle. We're not changing them. So that could look a little bit weird, but it is what it is. That's how we'll do it.
Now, Kuz, I know we've talked a lot about, because obviously him turning around those programs is kind of his identity. It's what he's known for, doing it 2 times in 2 programs that were in completely different positions. Temple, kind of a face no one really knows a lot about going in. Then you have that marquee face like Baylor, going through all that stuff, death penalty talks. But then I think more about the football side of it. I think one thing that he does really well and why he's just a great fit for this university is his face in the public. Like we've talked about this before we started.
Yes.
He's been everywhere. He's been everywhere. And I think that's they need to kind of Bob DeVay style, just market the program and get people excited again. And that's what he's been able to do.
Well, you look at what he did right after his press conference. He was already in North Platte a day after his press conference happened. He was already traveling, going to talking to in-state recruits, talking to the guys who had committed not to his program, to Frost's program. And you look at it, and he is just everywhere. He's at all the Nebraska sporting events. He's at various high schools. He's at as many events he can attend to as possible. And he's always making his face known, hey, we're here.
We are here. That's definitely – and I think, like you said, not only has he been everywhere, but he's been just a good human being everywhere. He doesn't act like he's too cool for anybody. I know I read a thing from the president of Lincoln Stars that said when he did their puck drop, I think it was 2 weeks ago, he hung around with the fans. He didn't ask for any extra security. He was just a man watching a hockey game. They said he probably took 500 photos, but he took every single one. And because he understands university, he understands it's a big deal, and you can just see how passionate and how much he really cares about getting this program back on the map.
Yeah, and I think one of the ways he's going to do that with his mentality is he's a hard work guy. You know, he always wants to be hardworking. You know, throughout the various social media posts throughout the spring ball, early conditioning season, I mean, it was commitment. Everything looked like they were going hard, trying to push themselves to be that better football team, and he really preaches that. And, you know, one of the things he talked about in his press conference was it's time for this team to be face of college football again. You know, throughout the whole 90s, 80s, like we were the face of college football. Not played against us, but, you know, had some stuff with our program, you know. He believes that this is the greatest brand in college football. You know, he always talked about how the N on the shirt, you know, it's a prominent figure, and he wants to make that prominent for the state as a whole.
No, yeah, for sure. You talk about that, and he said, even as a guy that's coached football for nearly going on 25, 30 years now, he said being that first day of practice and seeing that N on the helmet was still, it's probably, he said, one of his favorite moments of being head coach. And I think another thing I think is cool, we've talked about it, was the earning the single-digit jersey. I think that's cool. Coming in, kind of making it like a black shirt type thing where he wiped away, like I know we were looking through the roster and we couldn't find Marquise Buford. He's wearing 24 right now because they took away his one. I think that's just a really cool way to know because, like, when you see a single digit, like especially like a single digit defensive end, you're like, this guy.
Those are dudes.
This guy can play. This guy is good. I think it's been really cool to kind of see how he's kind of made that where you can earn it. So then you go to put that jersey on in Minneapolis in week 1 on that Thursday night, and you're putting on a single digit. You're like, I earned this. Yep. This is something that I was given to, and then it just kind of makes you want to play that much harder for just a university that you already want to play hard for.
Yeah, and you really look at it that way. A lot of dudes on this team, you know, most of them are from Nebraska or from the old coaching staff. And one thing that he preached to them was, "I came here to coach you guys." You know, he didn't want dudes to enter the portal or leave the team because he wanted to coach these guys. You know, he didn't have to take this job. He could have sat a year off. You know, with all the stuff he got from the Panthers. But, you know, he brought everyone back and all the assistant coaches. I mean, you look at some of the assistant coaches he brought in, like he brought in some real dudes.
No, yeah. I know, like you're talking about, he didn't need any of his own luggage. He didn't need to bring his own luggage when he came to coach here. He liked the dudes that were here, and those are the guys he wanted to coach. And I think that was really cool because oftentimes when you see a new coach comes in, guys are leaving the portal left and right all the time.
Especially nowadays.
Especially nowadays with the way the portal is. They're out the door as fast as they can. But guys stayed. Prominent guys stayed. I think that's really cool. So you talked about those assistant coaches, and I think this assistant coaches field he's brought in has been really, it's an interesting mix where it feels like a good 95% of them have coached or played with him before. And I think that's really cool because they've had success with him. They know what it takes to win. And then just bringing in those guys that know what you want to do, I think is really important.
Yeah, I think that's really important too. I mean, you look at the first guy he brought in, Tony White, the DC our defensive coordinator from Syracuse. He had a top 30 defense in the last 2 seasons. And I mean, watching Syracuse last year, their defense was a prominent reason why they started the season off well into the season undefeated.
Yeah. And I think another guy that comes to mind is Marcus Satterfield, the offensive coordinator. He actually coached for Matt Rule at Temple and Baylor. He coached the offense at Temple and then the tight ends at Baylor. And that guy, his offenses can chuck it. His offense can. If you remember, they beat Tennessee and Clemson last year in that season. And in that game, they had 94 points scored and over 1,000 yards of total offense. I mean, Marcus Satterfield, he knows how to get an offense moving down the field.
Yeah, you know, he runs a pro-style offense, a lot of RPOs. He really likes to use multiple tight ends and the fullback. We're really excited to see that fullback. And you look at some of the players that he coached last year. I mean, Spencer Rattler was a guy. He left Oklahoma. Not a very great second year for him. Completely revitalized his career. Now he's getting talked about like that Heisman candidate like he was at Oklahoma. He's able to revive players' careers.
No, I think it's been really cool. Marcus Satterfield has that playing college experience. He played at East Tennessee State University as a wide receiver. So I think that's really cool. And I'll tell you what, the one thing I like, Tony White and Marcus Satterfield, it's like they're 2 peas in a pod. They know how to play the game the right way. They know how they like physicality, they like mentality, and that's kind of what they wanted to see from their guys in the spring. And that's even what they told the media about that same thing when they spoke to them last week.
We're going to strive to be what we're come into this world to be, which is physical and tough and run the football and, take care of the football and keep the defense off the field. And that's what we're striving to do.
and making sure that the mentality is right, you know, and right now being the first day in pads and all that stuff, I think that's the most important thing, is establishing how we are going to play. You know, X and O's, they will take care of themselves, film study, they getting stuff on the grass, all that stuff, but the mentality is the most important thing right now, and that's the thing we got to work on.
You know, that's just stuff you love to hear from football coaches, just football coaches, but football guys too.
Yeah, it makes you want to play for him, and I think it really fires up those guys that compete every day.
Yeah, I think another guy I want to mention is E.J. Barthel. He was the first coach that Matt Rule brought on. He coached the running backs. He's coaching the running backs now. He coached with Rule at Temple. And another thing that no one really talks about, in 2017, he was a recruiting coordinator at Penn State, and he helped recruit a top 6 class. And I think that's another thing, just being able to get guys to come play for you, and plus being a guy that players want to play for.
Yeah, and you know, he's showing the experience of recruiting high-level guys. It takes a lot of work, and especially nowadays with all the NIL and various other things that go on. Having a guy that can be able to recruit those big-name players and be able to talk to the big-name players, I think it'll help, and it'll go a real long way moving forward with the program.
Yeah. And plus, that's a running back room that has a ton of potential. We talked about Gabe Irvin.
Yes.
Anthony Grant's back. We get A.J. Allen healthy again. I think that's a running back room that with good coaching can be really good. Next guy that comes to mind for me is Evan Cooper. Evan Cooper, he's coaching the secondary. He actually played for Rule at Temple on those good teams for him, and then he went on and followed him as a coach at Baylor. And in 2019 as a coach, Cooper's secondary was 5th nationally in interceptions and 18th in pass efficiency. This is a guy that can coach the secondary, which is another position that has a lot of guys coming back and a ton of potential.
A lot of talent in the secondary, especially you have Marquise Buford. And then in recent history, we've had a lot of guys go on to have success in the NFL, get to the NFL. And I think having a coach back there that, you know, has done it at the highest level, has been able to show my guys are able to do it at the highest level, it'll really help push those kids forward and push the defense forward, because last year we had a lot of secondary issues with just blown coverages, mismatches, stuff like that. But I think having him in there will really help the secondary.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think that's the secondary is just, especially now with the ways the offenses are working, where it's a lot
so fast.
Even though it's the Big Ten, you run the football, but they're going fast. The secondary, especially the safeties and linebackers are kind of your leaders of your defense. So having a guy that has experience coaching high-level guys, that's really important. Terrence Knighton, he's coaching the defensive line. He's another one of those guys that played for Rule at Temple, but he only has 4 years of coaching experience. And do you think that could pose an issue, he's a younger guy that, yes, he's played, but it's a whole different thing to coach the game?
You know, really, I don't think so. I think as long as you're able to coach, 4 years of coaching experience is a long time in football, practically going year-round. And seeing some of the social media stuff, it sounds like he's really confident with the stuff he's able to teach these kids. And the fact that he's already brought in a couple defensive linemen, Kai Wallen, a guy we'll later talk about here in the show. I think he's, you know, he doesn't have a lot of experience, but I think that'll go to help him, because we'll be able to give new things to these players and add new youth to the program.
No, yeah, I think definitely it's one of those things where the younger guys, they feel like they can form a connection with the players better. You know, like because you're like recruiting, and then plus just kind of like, because you know, like going out and seeing a guy that's like probably around 30 years old, he kind of can get a feel for what these guys are like, and they just kind of can connect a lot more. Another one of those younger guys is Garrett McGuire. Garrett McGuire is the wide receivers coach here, and he was one of the youngest coaches to ever coach in the NFL at 24 years old. And he was one of those guys that played for Rule at Baylor, but he didn't see the field as much, only playing in 6 games. But he knows the game, 2-time All Big 12 selection for Academic of the Year. He's a smart guy that understands the game. Coaching runs in the family. His father, Joey, is actually the Texas Tech head coach right now. They went 8-4 last season. And I think that's another one of those guys that, you know, we've seen the piece on, he's the first guy there every day. He's the guys that the players want to play hard for.
And looking at it like that, you know, if Rule brought him in here as being one of the youngest coaches in the NFL, being a young coach in college, recruiting, that'll go a long way. Matching up with your players, you know, understanding your players more. And I think Rule must really trust him and be able to bring him on to this such big, tall task that he has to rebuild the program in Nebraska.
Now moving on, probably my favorite coach, I can always see what this guy can do, Bob Wager. Bob Wager, he's He's coached high-level high school football. He was coming from Arlington Martin High School, one of the most prominent schools in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas. He went 143, 64, and 1. And I just think that's just really cool, and I think that he has the thing that can take this program to the next level.
And looking at it that way, I mean, he's got deep roots in Texas. We have not had a lot of Texas recruits since we left the Big 12, especially since Pelini left. I think having some guys who know what's going on in Texas will help a long way.
No, and I think he's one of those guys that he hasn't been here very long, but Wager, he has the respect of his counterparts and the guys he's coaching with, and even though he hasn't been here very long, he's got the attention of his guys and of not only the guys he's coaching, but his coaching fellow parts as well.
Coaching in Texas, I think it's helped him. You know, the programs of Texas try to run their programs like college programs, and he's been a high-level head coach and a successful one. I call him a GOAT. He doesn't like to be called a GOAT, but honestly, he's a legend, especially in that DFW area, and he's just going to bring a wealth of knowledge to this program.
Excited about Coach Wager joining our staff. Just the passion, I've known him for a couple years, going back to Baylor, and you'd see him coaching his high school teams and the love that he has for his guys, the passion he coaches with, his from off season to the season through the summer. He's always going 100 miles an hour for his cause, which is his players and his team. So I'm excited to see his group go out there. I think they're going to play with physicality and a lot of passion and a lot of purpose. So I think he brings a lot to the table, and look forward to see what comes through.
Have a great day today, boys. Great day. Hey, gotta finish, gotta compete for 10. Gotta compete for 10. Ready, set, go. Good. Go by that way. Get it off.
I think some of the best coaches in football are high school coaches. One of the best ones I've ever been around is Bob Wager. Going into his school, from the way that he would hug the players as they walked in every day, to the high standards that he had, to the culture that he built, to the success on the field. There's no one that's going to take better care of their guys and get more out of their players. And that's really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for coaches who are going to develop, are going to build great relationships, and then set really high standards for the guys so that they can maximize their potential.
We're going to compete right after this. Get your motor running. So let's make sure we're crowding the line of scrimmage and get hip to hip as fast as possible. Good, get out of bounds, that's it. Get those hands down at the bottom of the numbers, all right? Get your eyes below this.
What was that, better or what?
Better. Good, Nate. That's it, right there. There we go. Hey, you're getting better, man.
That was easy.
Yeah. How you like that? You take the right step? All right, let's go. Hey, there we go. Way to put it in the end zone.
I think from Bob, I think you see a guy with a lot of intensity, but also a great teacher, and that's the benefit, I think, of him.
Hands in, run them. Good.
You can be intense, be somewhat of a maniac, but then love that hard as well. So I think he's going to have high expectations for guys, his players, but I think that they're going to feel the love and feel the why of why he's coaching them a certain way.
I'm so lucky to have known Bob before I came here. He's just a guy that, he walks the walk, talks the talk, is highly respected. He treats people like he'd want to be treated, and has just such great integrity. And to have someone like that in the building and know that he's coaching our players with that same level of integrity, I think it's just so meaningful to all of our staff members and to people like me.
Let's hit it again. Hey, tight squad on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Tight squad.
Now, Coos, we've gone through all the coaches, kind of what they bring to the table, but I want to know, what coach do you think will have the biggest impact, and are you most excited to see take the field tonight?
One coach we didn't really talk about, Corey Campbell, the strength coach. This program was built off strength, really started the strength and conditioning program. And over the last couple of years, you saw players were kind of getting thrown around. I think seeing him and seeing what effect he has on the team, I think that's what I'm most excited to see. I
think, the strength coach is definitely, he was a strength coach for Rule at Baylor, and that was a team that went to the Big 12 championship. And the strength, that's a big thing that kind of goes unseen because it's in the off season, but you see, and when it gets to those fourth quarters, the strength the
Yep.
strength and the conditioning of the teams, and like are the biggest way to go. And now we need to move. We're going to move on to returning guys, the guys that came back that stayed with Rule when Frost left and Joseph as well. When they left and Rule came in, we have a lot of guys that came back. Which guys are you excited to see?
I'm really excited to see a player who's been in the scarlet and white. Xavier Betts, he left the program in 2021, early 2021. And I think being able to see him come back, try to rebirth his career as a Husker, be really exciting.
Oh yeah, I think I'm most excited to see Malcolm Hartzog. He was really starting to play good football towards the end of the season. He had that touchdown against Indiana, an interception against Rutgers. He was starting to play really good football on the stretch, and I'm excited to see kind of how he grows from a freshman into a second-year guy that needs to be a little bit more of a leader. Another guy that I'm actually excited to see actually left the program about halfway through last season, Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, the junior wide receiver. When Frost got fired and the transfer portal reopened, he chose to enter his name in, but then he stayed in there trying to feel it out, but nothing really came about. And then when Rule took the job, he talked to him, and he brought him back in mid-January. And he kind of said when he talked to the media, he said that's not really what he wanted to happen, and it's just it was disappointing how it ended there, but he's also really excited for kind of this fresh start.
Yeah, I mean, especially having a new coach, a new offense. I think it'll be really helpful for him to kind of rebirth his career once again as a wide receiver.
Let's hear what he has to say when he talked to the media last week.
I never wanted to leave, really, in the first place, to be honest with you. Didn't expect last year to go the way it did necessarily, so I just felt like, it's almost like a fresh start, for me, for everybody on the team, coaches, players. So, I was fortunate enough to be able to, be given the opportunity again and just come show what I could do.
Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, he was one of those guys that he had remember the first drive of the year, that touchdown the first touchdown against Northwestern. I mean, we saw that whole drive. We were like, this could be something special. And another play he made no one really talks about in that game, the scramble drill by Casey Thompson, if you remember, going kind of away on the far side of the field, where he threw it back across his body and Castaneda took it down inside the 15. He's a really explosive player that I'm really excited to have back in the program.
Yeah, and I think it'll really help with that wide receiver core. The last couple of years it's been a little shallow, no big name guys. I think he could be one of the big name guys getting the rock a bunch.
Another guy I'm excited to see, we'll see how Coach uses him, Ramir Johnson. Ramir Johnson, he was, in 2021, he was the guy. He was the guy getting the touches.
The running back, yeah.
He was the number one running back. And then turn around into the last season, and he barely saw the field. I mean, he's had like 13 carries last season, and a bulk of them were in the last game of the season against Iowa. And he's just a guy that got downhill, but the thing I like about him is he came to work every day. He barely played, but and then the coach left, and he stayed to kind of see if he can get his feet under him, and I'm really excited to see him.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the running back core of last year. A lot of Anthony Grant, A.J. Allen until he got hurt, and then Gabe Irving Jr. for a long time. I think those guys kind of took a little bit of his limelight, and I think he'll really explode with this new offense, especially with the new running back coach.
Yeah, I am. I'm really excited to see him, and then we'll have more from us coming up after the break.
Many of the brands you love don't love animals like you do. Look at the labels of products you use for a bunny logo signifying they don't lab test on animals. Check the label for those who aren't able. Start making the shift by visiting crueltyfreekitty.com today.
Of the 40 million tons of plastic waste generated in the U.S. in 2021, only 5%, or 2 million tons, was recycled. Make sure you do your part in keeping Anderson Hall clean. For more information on recycling statistics, visit epa.gov today.
We're talking about the return of a lot of players coming back, but one thing that no one's really talked about is the return of Frank Solich to Memorial Stadium. I mean, this is something I'm just excited to do. The guy, he was controversially fired in 2003, coming back to town. I mean, he's returning to Nebraska nearly 20 years after, like I said, he was controversially fired as head coach. And he was the hand-picked successor to Tom Osborne, going 58-19 in his 6-year tenure at the helm. He's following his time at Nebraska. He went on to coach 16 seasons at Ohio, becoming the Mid-American Conference all-time wins leader. He was an all-conference fullback for the Husker in the 1960s, and Coach Solich told reporters yesterday afternoon he's back because this time it felt right.
Just felt comfortable with it right now. You know, Coach Rule, I know when he got to town, he got a hold of Coach Osborne. He texted me some. We texted back and forth. We talked on the phone maybe once, maybe twice. And that wasn't happening before. And so I just felt welcomed in that manner, and you know, knew that it would be good to get back and be a part of what Nebraska's all about, and so I looked forward to it, and I'm glad I'm here.
So it's going to be great to see him back in that Scarlet and the Cream in War Memorial Stadium this afternoon. And
yeah.
What do you have to say about that?
You know, it's really great to see him back. I mean, he did a lot for the program in his short couple of years here. You know, he had a Heisman winner, brought us to a national championship, and it's great to see him back at Memorial Stadium. So
another thing that's kind of been coming into fruition here in the news is the new Herbie Husker. The new Herbie Husker is back. I say new, but it's the old Herbie Husker. He left coincidentally in 2003. Actually, they went from the old kind of overall old style guy to this kind of hard-earned Lincoln brunette hair polo. But like the new Herbie Husker, that's gonna be something pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's really exciting to see that. It's a great logo. I think it'll really show the representation of Nebraska. You know, that Herbie Husker really gave us the face for a long time for the university.
Tell you what, we're excited to see it, but actually our very own Nathan Hawkins had a chance to catch up with some students to get their thoughts on what they like to see with the new Herbie.
You know, I like that we're returning to our roots. I thought the OG Herbie was the best Herbie, and you know, the renovated one was cool, different, right? But I think that we're heading back in the right direction. You guys can see him repping it. But yeah, really love the new style, and I hope we stick with it.
It seems hair-wise, we already had Lil Red. Yeah,
we already had blonde representation. Why do we need more blonde representation?
I don't believe that if we want to move forward into a positive direction, that we should try to be throwing it back to old ways. Also, I think the new mascot just kind of looks creepy. I think the old Herbie was exactly fine. Brunette Herbie was a personal favorite of mine. So I just firmly don't believe that we should be going to a blonde Herbie.
My first thought is that the curse is broken. Ever since they introduced the one that replaced the one they just brought back, you know, things haven't gone too well. So I think this officially breaks the curse, and I think good things are ahead for Nebraska football.
I like both of them. I like that they adjusted it for like each sport, so each sport now has like their own adaptation of it. I think that's pretty cool.
Had a glow up. If you were gonna make him blonde, it could have been a real glow up. Like he could have looked better.
I don't know why we had to go.
He's not ugly. If you look like him, I don't think that you're ugly.
I'm telling you, we're gonna go like to the shit next year. Count it in, you can mark it down. It's gonna happen, all because of the new Herbie. So.
I'm with that last guy. I think with the new old Herbie comes national championships.
Yeah, and you know, bringing in new culture, new guys. I think really anything's possible, and the sky's the limits for this program. But along with those new guys, I mean, one guy to look at, Cameron Leinart, decommitted from the old program, recommitted when Rule came back. What do you think about that?
I think that just goes to show how Matt Rule is selling this program to these recruits. I mean, this is a guy that committed, thought maybe this isn't for me, but then when Coach Rule came in, he made an asset to get Cameron back. And I just think it goes to show that this program's in the right direction. This is a place that people want to come play.
Yeah, and I mean, really, to piggyback off of the recruiting, right when he got in there, recruiting, getting as many good guys as possible. You know, Dwight Boodle II brother of DiCaprio Boodle, who now plays for the Chiefs, Super Bowl champion. And, you know, he dipped into the JUCO pool a little bit. And one of the JUCO guys he's got, Kai Wallen, he's a DN out of American River, which is in Sacramento, California. And he's a real great addition to the defensive line that's been a little weak the last couple of years. I'm
excited to see what Kai Wallen can do. He's kind of like, he's a built, a little skinnier, lankier guy that can really get up the field and rush hard. I mean, another guy I'm excited to see is coming in the fall, Malachi Coleman from Lincoln East, the Lincoln product, high expectations for him, huge asset to get him to stay home.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy, I mean, you just put 10, 15 pounds on him, he's DK Metcalf. I mean, he's got the size, he's got the strength, he's got the length, he's got the speed. He just needs a little bit more muscle on the bone, and I think he'll honestly be one of the greats here at Nebraska.
And then, yeah, another guy, kind of another Nebraska guy that's kind of flew under the radar, Tristan Alvano. He didn't have an offer from Nebraska. He came in, Omaha Westside came in the state championship. He boomed that 50-yard game winner, and the next day he had an offer.
Yeah, along with 4 other kicks in that game, and honestly, an amazing player, a soccer player, you know, has a kicking background. 5-star All-American from Max Preps as a kicker. I think it's a great addition. You know, it's kind of a rich history with kickers here at Nebraska. He's going to add to it.
We've gone from the new guys now to the portal class. This portal class, this has been up there with one of the best ones Nebraska has seen in a long time. A guy I'm excited to see, Billy Kemp IV from Virginia. Billy Kemp, he's a guy, he's a smaller guy, but he's quick. We've seen highlights. He can get down the field, really in that slot position that Coach Rule likes to get him spread out and going. He's a guy that I'm really excited to see.
Yeah, and he could be part of that core, you know, part of the new core here at Nebraska wide receivers, and I think he has a chance to be the leading receiver here this season.
For sure. I think going to the other side of the ball, Elijah Judy from Texas A&M defensive lineman, he's huge. He's a big dude that can really wreak some havoc in the trenches. He's another one of those guys coming from an SEC football. Texas A&M didn't have the season they would have liked to have, but SEC football can still prepare you for great things.
Any dude from the SEC is going to be a great addition, you know, especially on the defensive line. Those guys are big, they're strong, you know. They're looking to get to the backfield on the quarterback.
Staying inside the trenches, but flipping to the other side of the ball. Ben Scott, a center from Arizona State. He came in, he was one of Rule's early guys, and I mean, he's got experience. He's got 4 years of experience at center, and he's a guy that I'm excited to see because center is kind of the quarterback of that offensive line. They're the leaders. They're the guys that kind of call out the blocking schemes. They call everything out. Having a guy with experience in that position, obviously we saw Cam Jurgens. He was there for all 4 years. His freshman year to his senior year, his growth was just tremendous. So getting a guy that's already in that 4th year, I think can do big things on that Donovan Arroyo offensive line.
Yeah, and this is kind of an offensive line, very shaky. We had some dudes into the portal, some new faces, returning faces with Teddy Prohaska. I think having a dude at the head of the offensive line will really go a long way coming into this new era of football.
Lacuz, we've talked about the guys coming in. Who are you most excited to see take the field?
You know, 2 dudes we didn't really talk about. Jeff Sims, quarterback transfer from Georgia Tech. You know, I was super excited to watch him play at Georgia Tech. Who likes watching Georgia Tech football? This guy was the reason you watched Georgia Tech football. And another guy, Eric Gilbert from Georgia. You know, he went to LSU as the #1 tight end, transferred to Florida, transferred to Georgia, and now he transferred here to Nebraska. And I think he really needs a place to showcase his thing and be that #1 tight end, and he has a chance to do that.
So you talked about Jeff Sims. I am excited to watch Jeff Sims play football. He can absolutely fly. Kind of brings in that kind of more run style that Rule ran at Temple, kind of a guy that he's excited to see. There's no doubt in my mind that he's excited to see him this afternoon. So moving on now to this afternoon, we have guys on visit, some big guys on visit, starting with Brandon Baker, the 5-star offensive lineman who's the #1 offensive tackle in this class. He's a big dude that can help do big things up front. He's a guy that Rule definitely wants to get to commit, and that starts this afternoon in Lincoln.
Yeah, he's got offers from Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan. He's from Mater Dei, which is essentially ran like a college program, and I think getting him and getting any dude to start getting a pipeline from California will do huge wonders, but this is where Rule needs to start in getting this guy.
Staying at Mater Dei, it's actually his teammate on the other side of the ball, Aiden Breland, another 4-star, will also be in town. And I think he's the #4 defensive lineman in the class who also went to Mater Dei. Sitting at 6'5", 290 pounds, he's a big dude that can wreak some havoc in the interior defensive line.
Yeah, and looking at the defensive line, you know, we need another Ndamukong Suh. This guy could be that Ndamukong Suh. He could be the force on the defensive line that makes it hard to get past on 3rd downs and 4th downs.
Yeah, a guy that has notable offers from Colorado, Ohio State, and USC, all programs that are in the media every year. Just got to find a way to get these guys in town this weekend. Another guy that comes to mind, Carter Nelson, a 4-star tight end from right here in Nebraska. He's the number 1 tight end in the state, obviously, and then number 10 nationally. But he's from Ainsworth. Does that concern you at all?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think any dude that has talent, they're really able to showcase it off in the kind of the smaller divisions of the state. But I think, he took a visit to Bama. I mean, if you're going to Bama from a small town school, you're that dude. I really don't see any issues with it. I think once he gets out and playing real D1 11-on-11 football, I think he'll do just fine. But he's a dude we need to get.
He's definitely getting those in-state guys are big. Obviously, we had guys like Ed Foley going all over the state to get these guys, and just being able to get these. Got to find a way. This is a big weekend. Now, obviously, the spring game has the coming of the new season. The trees are starting to bloom. The fans are going to be in the stadium this afternoon. It's going to be something really exciting. I think being able to really fill that place up will really get these recruits to see if we can get them to commit.
Yeah, over 60,000 plus tickets sold for today's game. I think it'll show for the recruits that are here that this stadium in this country state really cares about this program.
There's no doubt in my mind that this is going to be really big, and it's also something that's beginning to get a lot of buzz around campus. And our very own Nathan Hawkins had a chance to actually go into the middle of campus right outside the Union and talk to some of these students to see what they are most excited for this game this afternoon.
Practically a national holiday here in Nebraska comes every April. It's the red and white spring football game. That event is Saturday, and we're here in front of the Nebraska Union to ask some students what they want to see from the game.
I mean, overall, I just want to see good competitive football. Obviously it's a spring game. You don't want to go too hard on your guys, but I want to see some good hard contact, some physical football. I want to see the guys in the trenches getting after it a little bit, grunting, sweating a little bit, maybe putting in a little bit of effort. I want to see full live one-on-one reps on the outside. I want to see some of these receivers and corners really going at each other, trying to make each other better in the spring game.
I mean, I think just keeping Husker spirit alive, I just love the student spirit and stuff like that, so just keeping that alive I think is important.
I just hope to see a disciplined team, a team that works together, that's cohesive, and just a change from what we had previously. And I think Matt is bringing the right energy, bringing the right guys into the field. And I think that this season is the comeback that Nebraska has needed for so long, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, I really like to see the physicality, even just in a game like this, really set the tone for the rest of the season. And I think that's maybe something we missed last year, just the physicality on defense and stuff. So hopefully they're doing that in practice, and so on when Saturday comes around, it won't be a shock.
A good overall product would really come from a great competitive sort of atmosphere that they can cultivate. So I want to walk away feeling like these guys give 115% of what they had and really try to compete and get better in front of our viewing eyes.
I think the one thing is definitely competition. I think sometimes former spring games, it's not as competitive because maybe the scoring system is different. But even with the scoring system, even if it is different on Saturday, I think if you could have ones and ones and talent on talent, really going hard and really giving it their all, I think it'll make for a more entertaining product.
I think just whether or not you're going to the game, get down to the Haymarket, get down to the downtown area, immerse yourself. It's just that's what makes Nebraska, Nebraska, man.
Now, Kuz, we've seen what the students want to see from the game this afternoon, but tell me, after the game's over, what are the biggest takeaways you want to have?
I really want to see a lot of physicality from the defensive line. I think it's a part of the team that, you have to have in the trenches battles. But the defensive line over the last couple of years has been a little shaky, been a little inconsistent. I really want to see some physicality from them. Second thing I want to see is we have 3 core running backs, Gabe Irving Jr., Anthony Grant, A.J. Allen. I want to see those 3 guys all on the field, all getting first-team reps. And then lastly, I want to see quarterback-receiver chemistry. New quarterback, new receivers all over the field. I want to see that Jeff Sims and other quarterbacks want to see or have the trust to throw their quarterbacks along with the chemistry there.
No, that's for sure. Now, on the flip side, I'm excited to see Heinrich Harburg. Heinrich Harburg has made a ton of noise this offseason. He's been a guy that we've seen him running over linebackers, making blocks.
Dunking basketballs.
Dunking basketballs. That was crazy. He's an athletic guy that I think needs to get on the field from Kearney. He's an in-state guy that loves this program, will live and die for that Scarlet and Cream, and I just cannot wait to see what he has to show this afternoon. Now, another thing that we've never really talked about was Tony White's defensive schemes. His 3-3-5 that he ran at Syracuse, it's raised some questions about how will that work in the Big Ten. I'm interested to see, because he's made it very clear he's not coming in with a set-in-stone 3-3-5. He'll mix it up a little bit. I'm excited to see what he has to do with all the different defenses they're throwing at him, because obviously 4 15-minute quarters, this is a football game. That's a lot of time to show. And Matt Rule said they're not hiding anything. They're not going in there vanilla. They're going to play football the right way, and I'm interested to see how that fits into Tony White's schemes. And this last one, I think, might go for every single Nebraska fan this afternoon. Being able to see Thomas Fedoni II on the field for what is probably the first time since he was the #1 recruit in his class, #1 tight end in the country when he came here. He's a guy that has had so much upside and so much potential, but he's had 2 injuries. He's finally healthy. He's got those bionic knees. He's had 2 ACL surgeries. But he's a guy that we've seen is just absolutely massive. I cannot wait to see how they utilize him. Maybe a little tight end up the seam a little bit, maybe even get him a little over the back shoulder fade in the end zone. I'm really excited to see what they have to do with his size.
Yeah, I think if you can get him in some space, he's a scary dude to go tackle, and I don't think anyone wants to tackle him.
No, I don't want to tackle him.
I wouldn't want to tackle him.
That's all the time we have here. Again, thank you guys for joining in. For Kuz Keenan, I'm Trey Marler. This has been Unlimited Sports Production. Enjoy the game.